Hello. Are we good? Okay, I'm going to get right up on you. Hello. Hello. Testing. Testing. That's okay. I'm just doing a sound check here. We got it. I'm sick of how far away I can get. I got to be right up on it. I don't want to be like, oh, so-and-so with that. I heard that.
Of our videos.
I heard that.
Gotta get them on.
What?
Gotta capture comments on.
I'll be doing repeats.
Okay.
Because that's the only way to do it.
Yes.
You want to carry that one? That speaker. Yep. On the shelf. Back.
I just got the thumbs up, so I assume we're live. Good. So thanks for coming today to this update. Just want to kick off by thanking you all for your attention to this issue and for your prayers. We did meet with the city on Friday, and as Peter said, we got a good outcome from our perspective. The issue, as you recall, is that we were cited for non-compliance with building codes on the two structures, the tiny homes that we have here. And the city council voted to uphold a staff citation of those of that non-compliance and gave us 60 days to basically vacate the properties. So the negotiations on Friday, we started out setting a kind of a cordial tone, and we first explored ways that we could cooperate long-term with the city, and we got a very encouraging response from city staff. They again repeated what Mayor Rowe had said in our council meeting on the 6th, that there were a lot of things that the city could do to help us achieve our goals, that they shared the goal of providing better opportunities for people who are unstably housed. And so we kind of set a tone of long-range cooperation. However, as we began discussions about the short-term problem, we began with us being very adamant that we could not accept an outcome that caused us to vacate those properties and displace the people we have living there. And they started from the perspective of this is a code compliance issue, and we passed a resolution that, or the council did, that we had to enforce this, and that's what we're going to do. But if any of you listen to the diplomats talk, they talk about a frank exchange of views. So we had a frank exchange of views, and I won't attempt to recap those. But the outcome was, at the end of our discussion, that we mutually agreed that we would proceed to study and potentially implement a different set of building codes, the one that is described in pending legislation at the state, which applies specifically to sacred settlements, and not impose those more rigid building codes that apply to permanent dwellings within the city of Roseville as it's structured now. So we have a framework for going ahead. We haven't agreed on how we're going to get to there, but we kind of set the expectations for what the process will be and how we'll move ahead. From our end, it means that we need to look seriously at doing anything we need to modify what we have now to meet the codes that are described in the state legislation, which is still pending, but which describes in detail what those building codes need to be. For those of you that are kind of nerds and go into legislative stuff, it's House File 1872. There is a Senate companion. We did find, pardon me? 2471, thank you. And we did get our Senator John Marty and our Representative Jamie Becker Finn to sign on as authors to those two respective versions. There are 18 authors now in the House as of Friday. The governor's office staff seem to be very supportive of this. So the prospects look pretty good for this advancing. But whether or not it does, we have a basis for talking to the city about what we need to do to assure that we don't have to vacate those properties as of April 6th. No, May 6th, excuse me. So, that being said, what did the city agree to do? They agreed to take this back to the city council and see if we can work out a way to adopt some kind of an interim use plan using those codes to allow us to keep Valerie and the Berries living here and in community with us until such time as we can develop more permanent outcomes. Okay. So we're good. Now, what do you need to do now? I just handed out a piece of paper on which is a motion passed by our congregation council. I'm going to let you read it at your leisure. I'm just going to outline what it does, basically. It sets up a campus planning task force drawn from our finance committee, our property committee, our affordable housing team, and the two teams that are involved with Settled from our membership. And there are three things that we need to do. Basically, work toward that interim solution, that the code compliance issue, so we don't have to vacate at the end of 60 days. Secondly, to discern whether Prince of Peace wants to move forward with a more permanent sacred settlement. And thirdly, to look at a process for studying how all of our missions, all of our possible uses of our campus could be brought into a comprehensive plan. And the deadlines, we have a report due on that first phase. How are we going to manage the extension of our dwellings right now? That's due in 45 days from the start of the stay period, which means it's going to be 45 days from March 6th. The deadline for that task force to complete its work on the more comprehensive planning process is December 31st. So that's the update on where we are. Let's see, is Peter here? Do you want to add anything to that, Peter? Okay. So I open it to questions. And what I'm going to do this time, we didn't handle the microphones very well last time, so I'll just repeat your question for the viewing audience as we go forward. Pardon me? Okay, if you can manage that, that's good. So we're waiting. Just keep your hand up until we get our mic runner out to you. Okay, hands for questions. I guess this is good news. Those of you that serve on any of those committees that I mentioned will be getting an email inviting you to respond of whether you would participate in this task force. If you want to participate in this task force and are not on one of those committees, get in touch with me. I would like you to participate in one of those committees so that we use that committee structure effectively, but I want any member who wants to be part of that campus planning task force to be there. So, that being said, we have an update. Any further discussion, comments? Just a second.
Wave your hand at Warren for us, Rick, so we can see.
Like this. Look at it. It's up, should be on. Is it? I don't know if it's on. It was. Yep. It is on? Okay.
What specifically is the charge for that 45-day charge? What specifically must be done?
Let me read the language of it.
Was that in what you passed out?
Yeah, it says with concrete plans for how we will get a stay of eviction and extension of temporary conditions currently existing. Basically, we're almost there already, but that report would include what the city council process will be for the city council to approve that, or any action that the council has taken. But basically, so we know as of that 45 days with certainty how we're going to get past that 90-day or that 60-day period.
Okay, will this task force have some meetings then with the city?
To be decided. I think some members of that task force may be involved in future meetings with the city. For now, the agreement is the next meeting, which was in 2 weeks from Friday, will be those of us that were involved in the first meeting, which is myself, Peter, and our attorney, Evan Berquist.
So the charge by the 45 days will be to obtain an agreement with the city that the eviction will be put off while the process is working.
Correct.
Shouldn't it be 12, 31, 24?
23, this year. That's, now, the odds of any plan being really adopted, a big comprehensive plan by 12/31 aren't so good because things take a lot of time. But that task force planning work is to be done by 12/31. I'm interpreting your silence as good news. I think we have good news. I don't know how excited I could be more than this. I mean, it's like we're getting really what enables us to go forward. Just a quick word on next steps, actually, starting right now. The code modifications that we would need to make, the one that's specific that I know about is we have to install tie-downs over the tiny homes. Kind of like a mobile home has, so that they're not going to get blown over in the wind. That one we know about for sure. There may be others, like setbacks. We do also have to resolve the question of toilets. We will work with Settled. They have a contractor who helped them develop stuff and will help move stuff onto our property, who is going to analyze the codes in the state legislation, analyze what we've got here, and make recommendations on what needs to be done, and probably do most of the work for that. So it really shouldn't involve a lot of labor or investment of our membership time in that process.
I think you answered my question earlier when you said toilets.
Yes.
That's not plumbing. Do we have to have, is that something that's issued, provide plumbing to these tiny homes?
It would not be plumbing, but it would be an acceptable form of indoor toilet. It could be plumbing to the extent of some kind of holding tank type of thing or something, but I don't want to get too far ahead of it because the legislation in its final form isn't ready, but whatever is specified in that legislation will be what we will agree to comply with. We got another, raise your hand please, Chris.
That is an assumption that the legislation passes.
Actually, I don't think it is necessarily for the purposes of us getting a stay with the city. It's simply that we will comply with the code requirements as in the proposed legislation. Yes, because it will not have passed by the time that 60 days is up. It will probably pass in the omnibus bill, which will pass after May 6th, probably. So what we're saying is, those are the code restrictions that we'll agree to live up to get a further stay or some kind of interim use permit in order to continue operating while other factors are being considered, like our discernment process to see if we're going to go forward.
Do we have a list of possible additional uses of our property for the task force to look at, or is the task force to come up with this on their own?
I think we have a list in various places, which is why we have those committees involved. The Affordable Housing Team considered options and has in their past records some ideas for what could be done. We have some old ones going back to outdoor worship and so forth that the property committee has some sense of, I think. And there might be other places in church records where ideas have been proposed and they should all be in the hopper. Rick, over here. Well,
Just wondering, was the issue of rezoning our property discussed with the city council? Did it come up at all with the city council? Anyone you had Friday?
yes, it did. Beginning with our argument that the code restrictions that they applied didn't make common sense based on what we were actually using for, and they had said, well, we can't use those other code requirements because we're not zoned that way. So we did have that discussion. The process of rezoning would be one of those things that's in the longer term solution mix during an interim, or how the city what's their language on that? Interim use permit? Basically something where the use could be authorized for a specific period of time. So during that period of time, we would look at the zoning stuff.
You're getting your exercise, right?
I still don't understand why we're committed to this idea of changing the building codes. It sounds like we've already made that decision, that that's what we want to do. And I don't remember us making that decision.
Well, I think we've got two things there going on. One is the building code, and one is, not displacing the people that are in there. We are not talking about changing the building code officially with the city. We're talking about them to allow a period of stay based on proposed zoning or code changes that is in state legislation. So the city would not actually be changing their code at this point in time. We would simply be agreeing to live up to a model that is not yet enforced in code as a condition of an interim stay.
But that's what I mean. Why have we made a commitment to doing that? I mean, if we can state the eviction without taking eviction as that state legislation, I would prefer that.
Well, there's a couple things there. First of all, that was the condition that they imposed for taking it back to the city council, which would be have to happen in order for us to avoid the eviction. The city council has to do something to avoid an eviction. That was their proposal for how to do that. Our acceptance of their proposal was simply, we're already complying with almost everything in that code. We can certainly make the additional modifications to do that. However, that is not imposing that code on anything else in the city. It's not bringing it in as part of city code, and it's not necessarily forcing us to make code requirements going forward after the interim period.
Have we specifically asked the city for a variance?
No, that would be part of the further negotiations once we have a stay of that eviction order, or that, vacation order.
The city offers variances all the time.
They do, but the process for obtaining a variance, first of all, would have to be approved by the council, and secondly, would have to go through a process that would take longer than that 60-day period. But yes, we could do that as part of the longer range solution.
So I think the question that Chris asked would be part of the charge for this 12/31/23 deadline, or would fit into that more than something that has
Yeah.
to be done right now.
Correct. Even the process of getting an interim use permit through the city's existing process is going to take some period of time, and it's going to require things like a period of public comment with comment from neighbors. We have to notify neighbors, all that sort of thing. So that's a longer process. We don't know if that's what's going to be required of us to continue to avoid vacation of those, or vacating those units, but again, that will be further negotiations. Right now, we're just trying to, assure that we don't have to vacate those things in 60 days.
And at this point in time, it sounds to me like you're very confident that we have avoided the 60-day issue.
Correct.
Okay.
Not 100%, but very confident.
I just wanted to say, the reason we have this 15 days left at the end of the report period is we might need to show up as a group at the city council. So if we have a proposal that we're needing to back up, we may need some extra bodies to show up. So that 2 weeks is to give us time to organize what we need to respond, to get to the city council before they do any kind of an eviction.
That's a good point, and I should add that BJ is the one who proposed adding that 45-day reporting period in there because she understands how these processes work, and so she got us, prepared for that. Well, you're welcome, and just well, let's put the credit where it belongs in a word of prayer here, okay? Thank you, gracious God, for being with us, for establishing the ground on which we need to secure ourselves to move forward, for calling us to be servants of Christ. We pray for a successful outcome of this. We're thankful for all that you've done to bring us to this point. And we commit ourselves to following your will in this matter. Amen.